Honor to everyone that's watching. Honor to everyone that's joining the chat. Honor to you all. Give me a sec here. Hold on. Make sure everything is good. All right, I'm about to hit the screen share in a few. Give me a second. So honor to everyone that's watching. Honor to everyone that's joining the chat. Ray Gaming, honor to you. Selena Morel, honor to you. Aboriginal Woman, honor to you. Death to Self, honor to you. Let's see. Marcus X Sarah, honor. Diva Glam Studio, Weave, honor. All right, give me a sec here. I'm waiting for my screen to load up. Let me also hit the screen share so we can start. Okay, there we go. All right. I don't know why it's doing that. It should be up. Let me refresh this real quick. All right, so I'm going to address the elephant in the room, the whole Jefferson Davis High School marching band. Right, I'm going to address that, and I think because I put that in the title, as you see, they started messing with the If you're on your laptop, for some reason on the laptop, it gets blurred out like real bad. If you're on your mobile device, it's not that blurred. I don't know why that is, but right now it was just showing real clear on my laptop. Now it got blurred out. But anyway, as long as you guys can hear the live, because I'm not going to play their videos, because I know if I play their videos, they're just going to flag it and kick it off and kick the channel off, right? But the whole shenanigans with the Jefferson Davis High School marching band, that's what I call it, right? But anyway, before we start, let me state my disclaimer. I am Dartman X -TV. I am an Ahuak American from the American island of Zamaka, called what they call Jamaican corporate paper. With that being said, this platform does not advocate for any form of terroristic activities. This platform does not advocate for any form of hate speech. This platform is for educational purposes and for the critique of public information as it is put out there in the public. This platform is a media platform, or what you will call a news platform. With that being said, I say peace, love, and light to you all. And let's get into it, right? Let's get into it. Hayat Haru Amon Ray L. Bay, honor to you. Chuck Jackson, honor to you. Yona Yashurin, honor to you. Joe Mar, Sister Amina Abdullah, honor. Brother Star Strike, honor to you. Honor. All right. As you see here, they're not going to let my screen share, right? So you see that they're tampering with it. I could refresh it 10 million times. It's not going to do it. I refreshed it again. Let's see. All right. Anywho, so let's pull up the Jefferson Davis High School. Let's see if it comes up. Let's see. Let's just start with this first. This right here first. Okay, there we go. Okay, it's working. This right here. Now, if I don't even need to even stay long on this. This is going to be like 2 minutes, right? but this is just the elephant in the room. So when you go on their videos, they delete every comment that people are voicing their opinion about how they truly feel about this, and what they do is they leave all the supposed positive comments. What you got to understand is this, man, and all folks have to do is do the research, and you'll see throughout history, it's the brown paper bag effect. Throughout history, they're putting you or your children, they're putting you or your children back in a state of mind of follow the leader, right? That's what they're doing. And the leader that they put your children back in a state of mind is don't look like your child, all right? Because this is supposed to be what they call a all black high school. What is this? Or a all black high school marching band. What is this? This is ridiculous, right? I know there's folks out there that is for equality and all of that, but I mean that's fine. If that's who you are, then much respect to you. But this is not a natural equality movement. What you have here are fraternal people who are in these fraternal orders that are pushing an agenda. And if you connect the dots to other public information and public media events that's happening out there in the media, you'll see that. Like in today's society, they show what they call black folks having more of an active role in media, right? In the movies, they're getting more movie roles, more like high profile movie roles, but their counterpart, pay attention, in the high profile movie roles, their co-star has to be Caucasian, right? Or if the Caucasian is the number one leading actor, the Negro is going to be the number two. Now here you have an all Negroid high school marching band, and they put a young Caucasian male in the front, right, to lead the band. And then you got folks saying, yes, he worked so hard for that. I don't know honestly why people. Then in the comments, you could tell that they deleted the messed up comments, because you hear folks saying, I don't see why people are so upset in here in the comments. But when you scroll through, you don't see not one bad commentary, because they're deleting them. And it's not that they're bad commentary. It's just that they don't want folks to voice their opinion on how they feel, because they have an agenda that they're pushing. Okay. It's a massive agenda that they're pushing. And some folks that started this movement here are saying people need to be more upset. Here's how they're diverting it. They're saying people need to be more upset about the fact that the school is named after a Confederate slave master or whatever. All right, the school is named after a Confederate slave master. What is the difference from the school being named off of a Caucasian slave master than this right here? What is the difference? You're pushing and Caucasian male boosting up his ego. They're boosting up his ego. You're giving him high praises all across the board, right? But you have all of your young men and women marching in line behind him. And if folks don't know, this is also Masonic, all right, or what they call a cult, okay. And this goes back to the brown paper bag effect. This goes back to the standard that was set for your parents, and that they try to set for your parents before them, where we will allow you to achieve certain things, but only if one of ours is with you or leading you. Like in the marijuana industry, you don't have an all Negroid owned multi-million-dollar or $1 billion a year marijuana company without a Caucasian face in it. In the media, you don't have a all Negro owned media company that's mainstream without a Caucasian face in it. And it's not to say, well, this is to be racist or anything. It's not. This is just to say is that why do you feel the need to always include someone that has historically, when they come in on your stuff over time, water it down and rip it apart, and then it's no longer your stuff, or it's no longer the same, or the ideology behind it that it has started behind has totally been reversed and taken over, to where over time you no longer see your image behind any of these things, i.e. Jack Daniels whiskey is a thing that they also back in the day were also called on Whiskey Jack, the trickster. You see what I'm saying? Meaning, like the colored man that created Jack Daniels whiskey, you see him in the picture, but he's not the brain behind the whole creation of Jack Daniels whiskey. You see, they put the entire Caucasian family up there, and for almost 100 years, people believed that these people created Jack Daniels whiskey, and they didn't. You see, your image was there, then your image faded out, and history don't even remember your image anymore. It's like you have these folks in these societies, and people got to understand, man. And this is why I'm trying to tell you, this is not a racist thing with this right here. You just have dark-skinned folks that just hate their self. And anything that is being built 100% of dark-skinned people, you're going to have another set of dark-skinned people that don't want that. It's like when you see a Negro female talk about she want to have babies with an Asian man or a Caucasian man because she want pretty babies. I mean, this is where I give it to Tariq Nasheed. He even exposed that about the Jack and Jill Club. That's exactly what they're about. And then folks who used to be a part of Jack and Jill Club, who were of darker view, had the same complaint. You see what I'm saying? You had the same complaint. So it's like at the end of the day, this is just to show you guys that it's not you versus Caucasian folks per se, but it is two sides of a coin of a melanated coin, where one side just hate its complexion or its originality of where its origins, and will do anything to wipe that out, right? By pushing this occult agenda, because they want to feel like they're a part of something bigger when you're not. Because when you look at even Brazil, 20-something years ago, Brazil was 85% Negroid, right? Now today, Brazil went from 85% Negroid. Matter of fact, let's cut that. 40 years ago, Brazil was 95% Negroid. Today, Brazil is about 41 or 45% Negroid. They've totally started wiping out the population and genetic genocide in that population. Hawaii was once a straight Negroid island. The Hawaiian Islands were straight Negroid. Today, you hardly see a Negro or an official darker view person there. Okay? This is what happens throughout history when you incorporate these folks in your stuff. It's always like when they see one of us move in their community. Well, if one comes in, they're all going to start coming in, and they do anything and everything they can to get you out. Or if they can't get you out, they all move away. They all move out of the community, like boom, 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 back to back to back to back to back, right? But when one of them move in your community or in anything that it is that you are doing, they over time take it over and get rid of you out of it, right? It's like I'm hearing that they're going to have breakdancing in the Olympics, but not one Negroid team is in there. But the face that created breakdancing is Negroid folks, right? That's like an Asian person walking around with a flat top and giving credit to another Asian person for creating the flat top, when the flat top definitely came from the Americans. Like, it's at the end of the day, it's like, yo, when does the bull crap stop? And then you have, I'm not going to go on their stuff, but y'all could go on the Jefferson Davis High School marching band YouTube videos and just read through the comments. Like, you see like the buffoonery that these people are saying. And a lot of them were really saying, oh, they need to stop focusing on this young man. He's done a great job. He's a great leader. And you could tell these are these little fraternity, sorority folks that just literally straight 100% just sold their soul and just sold out, right? And if folks don't know what the whole selling of the soul thing really means, it's literally those who join these orders, right? And it's not all, because some of y'all don't even know about this, that is a part of this order. And when y'all watch these type of channels right here, and y'all start learning about sovereignty, y'all going to know how how what they talk about when you pray it in, and how to pray it out, and how to get out of the belly of the beast, or get out of these even occult thing. It all goes back down to the birth certificate, social security numbers, which are the mark of the beast numbers, QSIP numbers, these numbers. It all goes back down to these things. When you join, even for the artists in the music industry, that y'all get that blood contract to sign, or y'all get that contract and you sign away your soul, like literally, it means that you signed away your estate, that all capital name, right? When they own that all cap, because that all capital name is how you grew up learning how to function throughout life on that all capital name. Nothing can happen to you unless you're using that all capital name, that business name. So what you did, you just signed over all that shit to these people. You could go back and reclaim all that stuff because you didn't know about it. But these folks who run these upper class societies, they know about this stuff. You see what I'm saying? So when these folks join these things, they become slaves. They become slaves and thinking that they're getting a nice piece of the pie, but no, you're not. You're being used. So when they try to leave, and these folks start telling them, well, if you leave, you have to know how to leave. You have to know what to do to leave. You don't know what to do to leave. You just think, oh, well, I'm just going to stop messing with them. Next minute, you got a family member or two dropping off, and then you're going with the agenda because now you're like, damn, it's too late for me now. So now you're pushing the agenda on those other children out there. And if you also pay attention to the girls in the high school marching band, and then y'all go back to when I was telling y'all, showing y'all that DD4L, and I broke down the whole DD4L to y'all with the Grammidian, and what the DD4L stands for. It stands for the Grammidian, and what that means in those fraternal societies. It's all occult. And when they're calling themselves dolls, remember, a doll has no feelings. A doll has no emotions. A doll pretty much is artificial, okay? And you have folks out there, especially when they're wearing that choker around their neck, right? Again, a doll can be used any which way a person wants to use a doll, all right? So this is what the whole doll means when they're calling themselves dolls. It has nothing to do with beauty or a standard of beauty. It has everything to do with promiscuity, to be being very promiscuous. All right. So when you see how, if you look at the high school marching bands from 30, 40 years ago, and you compare them to now, today's age, you see a big difference. It's more sexual today. All right. And look who they have leading it. Like, you can't make this stuff up. And to have these people sit here and talk about don't pay attention to this young man and to what this symbolizes right here. I'll be damned if I have my son and my daughter in a high school marching band with one Caucasian child leading it. I'm not having it. I'll take them out of it and bring them to another school. I'm not having it. First of all, the school is named after a Confederate guy who was the president of the Confederate. I think he was the Confederate president at the time of the Confederacy. Jefferson Davis, and he owned slaves, and that's the name of the school. The school is named after a slave master. So you have a school here that's named after the slave master. You have the folks pushing this movement here for this little boy right here, right? You have the folks behind the scenes, which is all Negroid faces, pushing this movement. So you know there's a Caucasian face telling them, yo, you better. You better. So they pushing this also, right? And their thing is stop paying attention to him, and let's argue about, or let's debate on changing the name of the school because the school is named after a slave master. Well, this is the symbolic movement of a slave master here, because you have all your children falling in line behind him. What does it say about the future? Like an image, the psychological effect of the imagery that's in your head for children of our complexion, right? Children of our complexion, to grow up to always see a face like this in front of them, always say you are second class. You cannot achieve nothing higher than this right here. I don't care how hard he worked. I really don't care how hard he worked for it, because at the end of the day, it is a psychological effect that is taking place on the young ones watching this coming up. and they're not going to see it right now. I guarantee you, they're going to see it like these ones. They're going to see it like 20 years down the road when they have children, and they're going to see on every day on the mainstream media that how the media don't even portray them together anymore. It has to be one or the other. Okay, like this is what it is, right? And it's time for. That's why I've been saying now that a lot of our people are not going to make it within the coming years. They're going to fall deep into the brainwashing system, and it's going to take them their generations, their lines, another 1,000 years before they come up out of it. But the ones who are understanding and getting what's happening here, because there's a war going on, and that's the word to use. There's a war going on. It's not it's more of a psychological warfare on the minds of the Negroid people. And if you pay attention to the Watchmen series, they showed you that when they're showing the film projector and the folks is looking at it and the lights is flashing, 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 flashing. Well, when you watch TV, the lights is flashing at a massive speed. Nothing moves faster than literally than the speed of sound and the speed of light. So you're not going to see the flashes, how it's flashing, but you're going to see steady pitches. You see what I'm saying? You're still being brainwashed and programmed to this very day. All right. And I'm going to find the law. They literally made a law against it, right? Of putting certain forms of subliminal messagings over and over in movies and commercials, where you're seeing it in the movies, you're not together anymore. Like in Watchmen, we know now Dr. Manhattan is a Negroid male, and boom, they killed him. They showed the Negroid male and female with two Caucasian children, adopted Caucasian children, that they're trying to keep safe from their grandfather or whatever, right? Then they showed how the Negroid female was infatuated with her police captain, the Caucasian male. Like the shit is just ridiculous. It's literally genetic genocide. People are saying no, it's population control. Well, which population are they trying to control? Because obviously they're trying to create more babies, but they're just not trying to create more pure Negroid babies. And it goes back to breeding, like it goes back to like how they breed dogs. You have fawn, red, you have your fawns, your reds, your brindles, you have your blacks, your grays, like to go back to breeding a dog. If you compare humanity today to the dog breeds, and then that would also break down to where you're seeing how your white tigers, your Bengal tigers, and so on and so your different type of tigers and lions and all of that, you're going to see that it all goes back to the Negroid people, and you just have a section that's trying to water down the bloodline still. And it's just like, wow, right? Then it goes back to they see that a lot of our people, especially our young folks, and this is where I applaud a lot of our young folks today, right? A lot of our young folks has become independent entrepreneurs and very successful entrepreneurs on their own, and I do applaud them for that. And I'm not going to lie, I see some what that they call themselves black fraternities and sororities that pushes entrepreneurship amongst our young ones hardcore. I've seen that, so I can't be biased and just shit on them all the time. I've seen that, right? But like how I've seen that, certain fractions of folks out there seen that. And if you really pay attention to what's going on, right? And even to the Mexicans them out there, if you pay attention to what's going on, you have a certain class of Mexicans that are also going to be targets, the ones that have the Negroid mixed blood in them. Watch and see. Watch and see. You Dominicans that be out there shitting on your own people, or the one who are darker of you or of mixed blood, watch and see what's about to happen, because I pay attention to almost everything. I pay attention to the stock market. I see that Saudi Arabia company that now is number one over Apple, right? Over the Apple company. Pay attention, right? I see the Asian companies that are beating out what you call the supposed American companies. I am seeing everything that's happening now. When you come on social media, when you go on YouTube, you'll see there's a big difference in, like, pay attention. Like if you Go play a full episode of Love and Hip Hop on your YouTube channel and put commercials all over that shit. They will kick your channel off of YouTube in an instant. But I literally watched this Asian girl upload all streams of VH1's Love and Hip Hop and commercialize the entire thing, and they have not kicked her stuff off. I've literally watched these these coolie children who they call Hindus do the same thing, and they have not kicked their stuff off. But if someone like I or you go even put a hip hop song or a reggae song as an intro to your video, they'll hit you for copyright infringement and cut the monetization off your stuff. If you're not understanding what's happening, there's a change in the dynamics of the economical structure. And folks from the Middle East, the Asians and the Middle Eastern folks, now took over the United States Incorporated Corporation. But because these people understand that you started making a massive push in becoming entrepreneurs, because no matter what, one beautiful thing about our people is the fact that as much as people try to oppress you, you always find a way to always squeeze success from whatever corner you could squeeze success from. And the young ones coming up nowadays is not trying to hear no form of oppression type of thing coming on them. They're going to fight for what it is that they want. And I see a lot of the young ones nowadays not trying to sell out also. But which is why you see the picking up of the massive psychological brainwashing being promoted on the mainstream media all over. You see what I'm saying? And I heard Super Sly said something the other day where he said they're going to start taking a lot of these kidnappings and water them down, because when our people get a hold of things, we push it so far out there that we don't even check to see what's real or what's fake anymore. Also, it's something off the grounds of that, and I agree with him, right? And the reason being why I agree with him is look at the Uber and Lyft supposed sex trafficking cases that's going on. I don't believe them. At one point, I was like, maybe, but when you understand corporations and corporate warfare, right, and psychological warfare, Uber and Lyft are in a corporate warfare, right? This is what's going on. Corporations fight with each other, and they go to any means to tear each other down. But it's also a means of also saying, all right, let us cover up all the kidnappings of the Negroid woman and male, right? And they turn it into a feminist thing, because all of a sudden it's only Negroid females that they're trying to kidnap from these Uber and Lyft companies, right? But before there was a Uber and before there was a Lyft, 20 years ago there was no Uber, 20 years ago there was no Lyft. Who was kidnapping the Negroid boy and female 20, 30, 40 years ago before that? Who had more access in your community than Uber and Lyft? Who was everywhere in your community than Uber and Lyft? Who has a setup in each borough or district or county in your community than Uber and Lyft? Who has a certain form of authority where people won't even speak up sometimes if they know certain things is going on because they fear the backlash? I'm just going to leave it at that. Before there was a Uber and Lyft and these supposed kidnappings, who were doing the kidnappings before that? Because there was hundreds of thousands, millions of our young ones that went missing before Uber and Lyft. So now Uber and Lyft come along, people forgetting all that history that happened before that. Who was doing this stuff? Uber and Lyft is a psyops. That's my opinion on that. Uber and Lyft is a psyops. Okay, and it's the Dwayne Beckford, my man, right? And before Uber and Lyft came along, you already know who is responsible for the disappearance of your young ones. You know, if you follow the occult movement, if you follow I'm telling y'all, if y'all don't watch like Asian cartoons, start paying attention to them, because people, you watch these Asian movies and they show it in their movies, they don't even kiss their females, but in the cartoons they always show the older man with a younger female, the older woman with a younger male lusting after them in their cartoons, in their animes, whatever you want to call it. It's a cartoon. They always show that. So that's their perversion side. That's pedophilic. So when you're seeing and hearing that young boys and young girls are going missing, you have to also look towards these people. You have to also go look towards your Chinatown areas, these type of areas with these folks in there. If you go and you research what's going on over there in India with the child prostitution, down to even 4-year-old little girls that they're sleeping with, you have to go look into these things too. But anyway, long story short, you have these population of people from the other side of the world that took over this economy, and they took over this economy also based on also nationality, because they go by their nationality. Now that they're in charge of this economy, these people, what they have in common with your Caucasian is the fact that they don't want to see you, the American male and female, united together, building and cultivating together. Because once you do that and you start understanding, which you're coming into the understanding of nationality even more, you're a big threat to them. So they need to water down your genetics. They need to keep you into that second class state of mind, even though you are not even second class. You are now what they call the fifth estate. If you don't understand what the fifth estate means, it means that you are the slave class. You are the very bottom of the totem pole, because even the Mexicans came and beat you out. Even the Mexicans get it. Mexicans realize that in half of the police precinct here, more than half of the police precincts in the United States Corporation, they don't even need a college diploma to become a police officer, just a GED or a high school diploma, and they run and they go get it. Half of them don't even speak English to where you can understand them. You know what? These police brutality videos I watch, and some of these Mexican officers that's here don't even speak English like that. You don't even know what the hell they're saying. And it's not this it's not a kick to, some of our Mexican folks out there, but this is what it is. And they're the ones that claim that they ran away from Mexico because of the corruption of the officers and stuff, but they come here doing the same thing to you. Right? Because they understand the power that you can emit when you work together. They understand that power that you can emit. All other nations understand the power that you can emit when you work together. You don't understand that. And then you have those who are within your circle that just straight naturally hate themselves, that will push bullshit like this. Literally. The folks who have now taken over the United States Incorporated economy, they freely walk around, and if you check their family ties, they have strong family ties still today in the massive slave trade movement that they have going on out there in the Middle East, in that side of the world. Right? And you knew that they were taking over the U.S. economy, and you knew that they had the agenda to break down what they call a black home even further, because they use your celebrities to show you the footprint of what's to come. Janet Jackson and her Saudi billionaire, Rihanna and her Saudi billionaire, which Rihanna and I were talking to him no more, right? Eva the model and her also Middle Eastern or Hindu Pakistani looking husband that she has, to where the Negroid husband, her baby father, right, the father of her child, that's trying to be in the child's life, her and the husband is trying to keep him out of the child's life, because again, it's to keep the Negroid family apart, and she's playing in that agenda. You see what I'm saying? She's playing in that agenda. Now you see Janet Jackson trying to get away from her billionaire prince or husband, trying to get, because you know why? They've used them, they've produced a child for them, so now that their families now have an official tie to the Americas. They just needed them to produce that child so that they can have the tie to the Americas, which they now have a blood tie into the Americas via the way of their child, and their child estate is going underneath their Middle Eastern family's clan's name. Okay? This is how you take over in warfare without even shedding a blood. Oh, this is how you take over in warfare. Okay? But they need a boogeyman. They need a spook. They need a criminal. And they're going to turn your face into the biggest boogeyman, the biggest spook out there that the world has ever seen. Watch and see. This face has always played the boogeyman and the spook for generations. Now it's going to be this face. This face is whom they're going to push to be the serial killer, even when they're lying. This is the face that they're gonna like. They have a thing where they're trying to push this dude that got dreads to be a serial killer somewhere down in the deep south. But the stories that they give about him don't make no goddamn sense. None. Okay? And I believe that he's still free. Anyway, they're gonna start pushing a lot of your faces to be the killers, the rapists, the thieves, the drug dealers back again because they need to demonize you to get the rest of the world to hate you even more. While you're still inventing, you're still creating. I see a brother that breaks down Tesla cars. Tesla cars that break down and they can't afford to get it fixed. I see a brother, he goes and he fixed them. He brings back Teslas from the junkyard and rebuilds them right back all over again, right? And he's showing you. He called Tesla one time and he's like, yo, he wanted to get these lug nut covers. And Tesla started asking, why does he need that? Because Tesla took over and gained control over everything that has to do with their cars. So they don't want you to have the freedom that when you buy a Tesla car and it's 100% your property. Now I want to show y'all something because this goes back to the Eric Garner incident with the cigarette where the Caucasian man choked him out over a cigarette. You go and you buy a Tesla car. You're not doing a down payment. You're not doing none of that shit. You pay for it straight cash. It's 100% yours. Now you have issues with it. You can't go nowhere else to get it fixed because Tesla won't let you. You have to go back through Tesla. And they're going to charge you an arm and a leg to fix your shit. So if you want a lug nut or a bolt, you have to go back through Tesla. And they're going to question you, ask you, why do you need that? And if you tell them, oh, because I'm working on my car myself, they're going to tell you, hell no. And the gentleman, he called Tesla. And they asked him, why does he need the lug nut cover? And he was filming, and they did a documentary about him, right? He's called the Tesla hacker. That's what they call him, the Tesla hacker, right? And he brought back hundreds of cars from the dead. I think Tesla cars from the dead and fixing it for folks out there, right? Because he found a loophole they literally wrote a policy about Tesla. He found a loophole that because Tesla does not own any dealership, it makes it all right for you to be able to for him to be able to fix Tesla cars without Tesla's permission. Mind you, they still call them Tesla cars, even though you paid off for it. Now you go back to Eric Gardner. You go back to Eric Gardner, right? You go back to Eric Gardner. When you go back to Eric Gardner bought a pack of cigarettes. It's 100% his property. He got choked out for supposedly selling a Lucy cigarette, which is a single cigarette to someone. He got choked to death, murdered, right? Mind you, it's Eric Gardner's cigarette. It's his property. It's like you buying a car today and you want to sell your car tomorrow. You're allowed to sell it. You don't see no officers coming to choke you out for selling your own car. So why was Eric Garner choked out for selling a Lucy cigarette that he bought the entire pack and has the receipt as his bill of sale? It's his property. Because the corporate entities want to control everything. Everything. You think if that was a Caucasian male, they would have choked him out? They would have never choked him out for a single cigarette. They wouldn't even give a shit. I remember when I used to walk through White Plains up in the Bronx, you literally will have undercover Caucasian officers trying to get you to sell them a Lucy cigarette so that they can lock you up. These are the tactics. I want to tell me and my cousin was out there, we go anywhere in New York. We good anywhere we go. We was out there, we was chilling, and these officers, we know their officers, yo, sell me a cigarette, yeah, I'll give you a quarter. I'll give you a quarter for a cigarette. I'll give you a quarter. My cousin like, nah, I'll just give it to you. Here. He's like, nah, just take the quarter. My cousin's like, nah, here, I'll just give it to you. Here. I don't here, just take the goddamn cigarette. He's like, nah, just take the quarter, take the quarter. You know what I mean? It's all good. I'll give you this quarter. Just take the quarter. You know what? Here, just take this dollar. And my cousin just looked at him and was like, yo, you cops don't got nothing better to do. Y'all sit here, and this is to show you that how they push that, how they try to push the crime rate on you to make it look like you are you commit more criminal acts than anybody else. It's a lot. The numbers are so fabricated on you. Okay, so fabricated. But you gotta understand, man. I pull all of that from this one little imagery right here. Okay, and y'all have to understand what's going on, what exactly is taking place right now in front of your face, in front of your eyes. Stop ignoring what your eyes are seeing because your friend was like, oh, your friend talks all proper and it's telling you, oh no, there's nothing wrong with that. So what's wrong with that? I mean, he works so hard for what he's doing. Look how many of your young boys and young girls work hard to get a certain place, and yet still at the end of the day, they chop them down by the ankles and they can't climb any higher. Because they leave them stagnant as hard as they work. As hard as he worked, your son and daughter have to work 5 times harder in this society. So miss me with how hard he worked. It's worse. That it's bad enough the school is named after a goddamn slave master. This is crazy. And not a slave master of what they call African slave, the American Indian Negro, the Negroid American Indian people. Like, and then you see, like, what is this, the Capitol in the background? What's this, like the City Hall it looked like in the background? Like, this is crazy. This is really, I was supposed to spend just 2 minutes on this, but I'm sorry, I couldn't. This is ridiculous. I would have taken my child out to school. My pops told me a long time ago, I can tell you something and you might forget. But if I show you, yes, it will always stick in your mind. And this is what they're using. It will always stick in your mind. It's imagery. People don't understand psychology or hypnotizing or brainwashing. It's not the words. It's the image that flash in front of your eyes because it is being embedded in your DNA. And now some people be like, oh, that's bullshit. I don't know what you're talking about. That's fine. You can think or believe what you want to believe. It's your opinion, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not going to knock you on that. But if you have not done the research, if you have not been paying attention, if you don't know what your DNA can do, what your genetics can do, that each cell in your body holds a memory, then I don't know what to tell you. Okay? But this right here, to me, is self-hate. It's pushing that, well, you're not going to achieve anything unless you stay behind this face right here. And in the movies, they're showing this face to be the savior of this face. Why can't you save yourself? If this face and this face and all these other faces behind him all come together, put their money together, build together, they can grow together, be successful together, build a community together, create a police force, create a military force, create a political system together. This is why they keep this face in here to disrupt and stop all of that from happening. And that's a fact. It's not about unity. You got to understand this face and all the leaders of the Middle East world and the African world, they're already united. They've always been united. Okay? Even folks who are united fight with each other. But at the end of the day, they understand the number one goal and agenda is to lock down the Americans. Period. Okay? So it's time for y'all to wake up. Like they're getting rid of, and there's so many documentations that can prove my point that they already started deleting off the net, right? Like I managed to grab one. They started deleting the person that owns the Vibes Cartel estate, who owns that. They started deleting. They deleted. They ain't started deleting. They deleted the documents, the UCC one, on what Jamaica is. The UCC one application, the UCC one form that points and shows Jamaica, the island that they call Jamaica, on corporate paper to be a debtor and to be a corporation. Jamaica is not a country. It is not a land, and it is a corporation owned and managed by the United States Incorporated. And if you check out the history of the United States Incorporated, it's going to take you back to England. Then it's going to take you up into South Africa. Then from South Africa, it's going to take you down into back to the Middle East, and it's going to take you back into India and in the Asian countries, more so China than anywhere else. These are all the entities that have shares in the United States Incorporated. So now what does that say about all these wars that has been happening over the years? Like I said, there has never been a war in United States history that has been for the right or the freedom of the people. It has always been a war for profit. And it's not to knock any of the veterans out there, but this is it's just what it is. You've been tricked to go overseas to go to war. You know how it felt when I hear my family member or one of my best friends who went overseas and did more than 3 terms, yeah, come back with disappointment because they said that when they did when they did when they did take over the oil fields in Iraq, that what's the name? What's the oil company name? Is it Hess and Shell and Exxon? These companies came, and these CEOs, these representatives for the CEOs for these companies came and started giving them orders that it wasn't about liberation of a people. It wasn't about the whole 9/11 thing. It was never about none of that. It was about assets, what you can gain. And then to find out that all the folks that runs these companies, right, are all men of different ethnic backgrounds, of Middle Eastern background, of African background, of Coolie background that they call Hindu, of Asian background, that they all at the end of the day go and smoke the best cigars and drink the best freaking liquor together and go away on vacations together and chill together, but then come on national television. Oh, we are at war with so and so, and so violated our airspace, and they're all chilling together. It has been always a game. So it has never been, well, I went away to go fight for your rights. No, you thought you did that, but you were tricked, just like how majority of the people here were tricked to believing that they were underneath a foreign terroristic attacks, when they were always been local, because they've been, in my opinion, coming from the corporations, because this is how corporations rule. Okay? But they are all united when it comes to keeping you as the American Negroid man and woman behind them. They can't afford for you to move up in leadership and rulership and start coming together as a united front, a united force together, because then you're going to realize that the entire Americas is yours. Now, what does that say to these people that has been draining your oil, that has been living on your best lands, that set up the most racist organizations to scare you from going up into certain parts of the mountain regions in these places, that has been stealing your crystals, all your natural resources, your sea life, polluting your waters, your ocean, all of these things? What does that say to you? That they've been taxing and taxing and taxing and taxing and taxing on everything. while they're taking your resources. And then when you read some of these old contractual documents that these folks made with each other, we're not talking about anything that they made with the American Negro people. We're talking about what the Asian made with Europe, what Europe made with Asia, the Middle East, with Morocco and Switzerland and all these different places. That if you are on their land and you're mining their resources, that you cannot tax them on their own shit, but they're taxing you on your own stuff. Y'all need to wake up. That's all I'm gonna say about that. This whole Jefferson Davis High School marching band shit is bullshit. This is the biggest elephant in the room. This is bullshit. Straight up. I don't care what they want to say. That's just my opinion on that. And I can get off of it now. We're gonna go to the 300 offices that they're suing in St. Louis. Right? I want to pull up this article. Give me a second here. To everyone that's joining the chat, honor to you all. Honor to you all. All right, so here we have, and if folks haven't heard about this, so this is that you guys, excuse me, go look it up. Nearly 350. This is from riverfronttimes.com. This is posted by Doyle Murphy. It says nearly 350 St. Louis cops named in class action suit 2 years after police kettle. Now, you see this word kettle? Do not pay attention to this word. They're just trying to create a new word. A kettle is something that you put on the goddamn stove and fill with water when you want to go make tea, goddamn it. The word is not kettle. They don't want to call the word what it is because it goes back to showing you what the policy department is about today. And it shows again that they're no longer peace officers. The Constitution named them peace officers because their job was to keep the peace. But when they changed the name from PEACE officers to POLICY, then changed it to POLICE, they became policy officers, meaning any policy that they write and put down, that's what they're going to enforce. They're no longer there to enforce the peace, to make sure that the peace is kept. They're no longer peace officers. And because there are policy officers dealing with a prison system to imprison people, this word right here, kettle, does not exist. It's not called kettling. It's not called kettle or kettling. All right. We're going to get into what the word is that is called. But let's get through this article here. Now, they're trying to diminish it to like, well, the last 100 protesters or the last 200 protesters that was out on the street at night, and the officers was trying to disperse the crowd. And so it's bigger than that. You see, you got to stop looking in the direction that mainstream wants you to look. You have to look beyond that. All right. You have to go back to the Occupy Wall Street incident. You have to go back to what's going on in France. You have to go back to the sit-in that took place in Japan a couple years back. You have to go back to the 70s and the 60s when our people used to protest in general. Now, what's the difference from then until now? There's no difference. These guys have always been violating protesters over the years. I remember the college back in I believe it was in the late 70s. They had a protesting and they sent in, I think, the National Guard or was a police force that opened fire into a crowd of protesters, killing how many students on campus? Right? Because they're no longer peace officers, they're policy officers. So their job is, well, if there's going to be a peaceful protest, their job is to infiltrate the crowd in undercover gear and create a ruckus so that it can seem like the protesters are being violent so that they can have an excuse to deploy their tear gas and anything that they need to disperse the crowd. You have to understand the corporate mind. You have to start thinking corporate. Corporations run shit. So you got to think, how do they stay in power? What is it that they have to do? You think they do things fair and square? No, they don't. They do things real dirty, underhand, cunning. This is how they stay in business. And they need underhand, cunning people. Means that they hire the least educated folks to work for them. It's like when they're picking a jury. When they're picking a jury and they realize that you are highly educated or that your comprehension skill level is very high, they don't want you on the jury. They want the most ignorant person they can get on the jury. So now you're understanding the psychological effects of why some of these officers are the way they are. They want the most ignorant person on the jury because the prosecution can slip past any dumb shit to that person and they'll fall for it and convict an innocent person like that. Okay. Now, let's read this. Everything is in a name. When the name changes, so does the position. It went from peace officer to policy officer. All right. The name changed. So the job title, the description of the job is not the same. Anyway, police mass downtown on September 17, 2017, the night of the kettle. It's not called kettling. I'm going to tell y'all what it's called. They're just trying to hide the deep impact that this shit really had. A new class action lawsuit names nearly 350 St. Louis police officers. God damn, that's a lot, right? 350 St. Louis police officers alleging they acted together to illegally arrest and abuse protesters and others during demonstrations that followed the 2017 acquittal of a white cop charged with murdering a black man. He murdered that man. And the Mike Brown murder wasn't even the only murder that took place that year. They murdered 3 other young men right after Mike Brown and try to plant a gun on one of the scenes on one of the other young men. Right? They shot him multiple times in his back too. A young man that they chased from a shopping area and murdered him. Okay? So it was a lot of murders going on in St. Louis. All right. Attorney Javad Kazeli of Kazeli Wyshik says officers took extraordinary measures to hide their identities. Yes, they did. I remember that. On the night of September 17th, they did it all through the entire protest. See, so they're trying to boil it down to just one night. I'm telling y'all, don't fall for this dumb shit. They're trying to boil it down to just one night. They did it throughout the entire protest. They did it to the protesters in New York. They did it to the protesters in LA. They did it to the protesters in Chicago. They did it to the protesters in Detroit. They did it all over. Okay? I'll play some of these videos, but I don't want them to yank my stuff. Just go back and look back at the old protesters. I'd rather play the videos on my D Live than on here because they're gonna yank it if I play the videos. Okay, but anyway, so it says extraordinary high identities night, September 17, 2017, when police trapped more than 100 people in a downtown intersection. Their names and badges hidden. Officers in riot gear swooped in that night for mass arrest. More than a dozen lawsuits have been filed in the aftermath, offering similar accounts of police mocking, beating, and threatening anyone who happened to be on the street when cops encircled the intersection of Washington Avenue and Tucker Boulevard. Now, that word encircled is very important because it's going to go back to what exactly these officers were doing. The incident has become infamous, known simply as the kettle. The new class action suit mirrors many of the allegations from previous suits, but also accuses the officers who were working that night of conspiring in the abuse, either by activity taking part in the beating and bogus arrest, doing nothing as it happened, or failing to prevent their colleagues' illegal acts, even as officers bragged about plans to pummel people. They bragged about plans to beat up niggas. That's what they were saying. They didn't use the word people. Now, to those folks who be like, but the good cops, well, look, the good cops heard them planning this shit and did nothing about it. Even though they remember they was pushing that Negro state trooper as the face of Ferguson. Remember? Oh, he's the one. If he's the neutral ground, anyone could go and talk to him, or he understands, he gets us. But what did he do? He didn't do anything. Did he resign because he didn't want to work anymore with those corrupt officers? No, he stayed on. Did he speak up about those corrupt officers? No, he didn't. What did he do? He didn't do shit. Not a damn thing. Now, we don't got to get too much into this article here. This is bigger than just those 100 people. You remember the video that they caught of the police, the St. Louis sheriff deputy in the car with the KKK member? Y'all forgot that video? Y'all forgot that they showed? The St. Louis sheriff deputy in the car with a KKK member. And it just so happens, I believe this was the night or the night before, they shot at some protesters. And then y'all remember in was it Seattle or Minnesota where they did shoot some protesters also, right? In an unmarked car. And no one knows who did it. Come on, in my opinion, it's these same officers. You have a lot of racists on the police force. They have the means, they have the motive, and they have the means of getting away with it. Okay? Y'all forgetting that? Y'all forgetting those protesters that they had sat down, I believe it was in Central Park, and walked around them and took the beer mace and beer mace the hell out of those protesters while they were handcuffed in their face? Y'all forgetting that? This is bigger than just these officers here in St. Louis. Y'all forgetting how the officers in Baltimore was beating the shit out of people, how they were tear gassing people, how they was doing all of these things? Y'all forgetting that? Y'all forgetting how they were shooting tear gas at the ones in Chicago? Huh? In this protesting? Y'all don't forget that neither. How they still have the black site in Chicago that they were kidnapping people in mass numbers and beating the shit out of them in the black site. Some folks came back home. Some folks was never to be heard from again. Don't forget these things. They happened. But everyone forgets, not everyone, but a lot of Americans, original Americans, forget this stuff because they started paying attention to the mainstream media, to what's going on in the mainstream media today. Oh, word. Oh, this celebrity's dating this person. Oh, this celebrity's going through that. Oh, wow. And they forgot all of that. If you go back in the Constitution, right, it tells you that they're not supposed to impede your way of travel or when you're going to protest. They're not supposed to impede you from protesting. Civil disobedience. That's what they call it. They're not supposed to impede that. Their job is just to make sure that you don't break out into fights amongst each other in the crowd. Their job is to make sure that you don't go burning down buildings. But if you're marching, hands up, don't shoot, and they come and they start setting up barriers, they're not supposed to set up no form of barriers. They're not supposed to set up none of those things. Once they set up barriers, they're impeding your right to travel and freely protest. It's against the law. So it's not just St. Louis officers. It's officers all over on the American soil from this foreign entity called the United States Incorporated that was doing this. All the departments, every single one that had a hand in dealing with the protest. Now, I would go and track down the ones that they claimed that was burning down places,
and the ones that they claimed, the folks in the protests that they claimed that was being civil disobedience, that they said, oh, look, see, we have them on film. I will go and investigate them and do a full report investigation on them. And you're going to realize that some of these folks were, because don't forget in St. Louis, where they showed buses of juveniles being dropped off in St. Louis, and come to find out that they was coming from a juvenile detention center, that they just let them go in St. Louis, and their job was to go and create chaos. Remember the Caucasian boy that they backed down in a corner and they took his mask off his face, and he was telling them he's just an actor. He just got a job to act, and he's just an actor. And he was the one throwing bricks at the police officers. This is what they do, so to give them an excuse to F you up. You forgetting these things? Now when you try to find some of these footages, they buried them so deep. So deep. Now, they're using the word kettle in this, right? But it's not kettle. Right? Let's do this. Word is not kettle. One second here. I think it's called corral. It's not kettling. Now, in this article, it states that the officers created an enclosure and was blocking off the protesters, circling them. Right? They trapped them in a circle. It's called corralling. This is what you do to cattle. Okay? And when I be telling you guys, they don't look at you as living, breathing human beings. They look at you as all caps, an entity, a business entity, and they're going to treat you as such, or they treat you as an animal. This is what they're going to treat you as, because even the word human in some dictionaries come back to mean an animal. You got to understand that this is not, we don't know what we're doing. After years of them being on the force and studying certain things that they're supposed to study, you're going to understand that what they're doing is sometimes now no longer out of ignorance, but out of the fact that this is what they were taught. So here goes the noun of corral. Pen or enclosure for horses or cattle. From Spanish, corral. From carro, ring. Portuguese, corral, a word of uncertain origin, perhaps ultimately African. They just guess it. They just do that shit out there. Or from vulgar Latin, corrale, enclosure for vehicles. From Latin, carros, two-wheeled vehicle. From courier, to run. Pi, curs, to run. In U.S. history, wide circle of the wagons of an ox or mule train formed for protection at night by immigrants crossing the plains. Now you go back, a wide circle of wagons. Okay, this is when they used to use the wagons back in what they call the cowboys in Indian days, and they used to use the wagons and make a big circle of the wagons and have the people within that circle of the wagons a corral. Now, if you go back through, let me see if I can pull up some of this stuff. Let me a second. Hold on. We're going to go to it. Let me get into the verb. The verb of corral. To drive into a corral, from corral. From 1848, as to form a circle with wagons, meaning to lay hold of, collar, capture, make a prisoner. Of is U.S. slang from 1860, related to corralled. Again, to make a prisoner. So, I remember the Occupy Wall Street protests when the police took everyone out the street and made them walk on the sidewalk. told them you can't be in the street, you're blocking traffic. But that's the point of civil disobedience, of the right to freely protest. It's to block traffic. It's to cause a traffic jam. It's to affect the flow of business. It is not to, oh, well, excuse me, I don't want to block traffic, so let us just occupy just the sidewalks, and we're going to occupy the sidewalks. And then they show you down in the back alleys on the other side of the streets how the police set up these barricades to lead them away from Wall Street. And then when they was being led away from Wall Street, they ran into a massive police barricade that entrapped them into a circle. And then when they were on the sidewalks, walking on the sidewalks, you saw the police captain himself, in Manhattan, yanking folks off the sidewalk and putting the zip ties on them, locking them up with zip ties. Right? That's corral. Now, when they put the zip tie on you, they take you to jail and lock your ass up in jail. All of that were wrongful arrests, caught on camera. And then the news media spun it like, well, they were civil disobedience and they were being like this and they were being like that, which is bullshit. You can't believe the mainstream media. What you saw was a massive violation of folks' universal, God-given, alienable rights, okay? And what you saw was criminal actions being taken by the policy officers, okay? Now, people is saying, why you keep calling them policy officers, Dark Man? Well, let's show you why. Keep calling them policy officers, goddammit. The police. Now, the regulation and control of a community. At first, essentially the same word as policy. Okay? They just took off the Y and added an E, but the CE still pronounced C. Okay? C. So still policy. They're policy officers. They're no longer peace officers. They used to be this. I think it should be here. I hope it's here. It might not be in here. This is just a guess. They used to be peace officers. Right? This is what they used to be. Let me see what this says. Freedom from civil disorder. Okay, so now look. Now let's make the connection. So this is peace. Peace is freedom from civil disorder. From Anglo-French pies or French peace. Peace, reconciliation, silence, permission. From Latin nominative, compact, agreement, treaty of peace, tranquility, absence of war. Okay. To fasten on the notion of a binding together by treaty or agreement. So that's peace, right? It replaced old happiness, modern spelling, 1500s, reflecting vowel shift, sense and peace of mind and from. Now, as a peace officer, their job was to make sure that the treaty of peace is not broken, right? The treaty of peace, this is why they have their treaty of peace and friendship. By many nations have a treaty of peace and friendship with the United States Incorporated, okay? It's to make sure that the peace isn't broken. So civil disobedience will be, if you're going to march down the street, you have all right to block the highways and byways. You have all right to do so as long as you're not damaging anyone's property, as long as you're not destroying or damaging anyone or their persons, okay? Then you are not breaching or breaking the peace. So you have all right to civil disobedience. So as the officers, an officer, one who holds official post, or one entrusted with responsibility or share of the management of the undertaking, right? Originally a high office that from Old French. Let's pull this up even more. Let's pull this up. Officer, officially from medieval Latin, officer from Latin, a service, a duty. So now, an officer and peace officer's duty is to just to keep the peace. Make sure that there's no violence being broken out. Make sure that there's no murders, no theft, no damage of property. That is a peace officer's duty. But when it got changed to policy officer, it no longer became about that. Now you see them pull you over on the street for a busted taillight, all this different type of bullshit, because every time a new policy is created, their job is to go enforce it. So they're no longer peace officers, they're policy officers, meaning that their job is not to keep the goddamn peace. This is why they beat the shit out of you. They violate you physically. They use threats, intimidation tactics on you, a threat of violence, because their job is to no longer keep the peace. That means the Constitution that you think they took an oath to, they didn't take an oath to that. They took an oath to the peace, to the policy document, the corporate document called the Act of Columbia, the 1781 Columbia Act. Okay. That's what they took an oath on to. So you have to understand, now you have an occupying foreign force that is operating and moving up on you. Okay? Occupying, meaning a military. All right? Understand this. So when you see them using those corral tactics on the protesters and it's yanking you out there, because their job is to no longer keep the peace. Their job is to psychological effects, warfare, to enhance the violence. All right, so that they can have an excuse to lay down their unlawful policies. Okay. See, in Florida, they just passed a policy that they're trying to call a law. It's a policy that that if an officer feels annoyed, right, he has all right to arrest you. So that means if you're walking and you're filming the officer, he could just say, "Oh, I feel annoyed. I'm going to arrest you." If you're trying to film your encounter with them, "Oh, you're annoying me." If you ask the officer, that's all they said, is very vague. Just like YouTube's policy is very vague. It has no real explanation, no pinpoint areas, nothing. It's very vague. It's open for any form of interpretation, meaning that it's not law. It is a corporate, it is a policy. It is a corporate policy. It is not law. Anything outside of the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, is not law. Those are corporate policies. They're trying to gut the Bill of Rights. They're trying to gut the Constitution to where it doesn't mean shit, because the United States Incorporated is now ran by other foreign entities that are from the Middle Eastern geographical location in the Middle East, and they're not for your Constitution. So they're trying to gut that shit and get rid of it. Okay? They gave y'all the telltale signs. The 2016 quarter of the Muslim on the United States quarter waving the Islam flag. That shows you that the Middle East has taken over the economy. That means they probably own or bought the United States Incorporated debt. They bought their debt. That's what it means. So these folks, they're no longer what they were supposed to be. So they're not for you. Their job is to make up any means to put you behind bars. That's their job. By any means to put you behind bars. Making their search and sniff dog to do false hits so that they can get access to your automobile and plant drugs in there. And also, you have the right to film them while they have their dog running around your vehicle. Like, literally, you have the right to walk around the vehicle with them and film while the dog is going around the vehicle, right? Because this is how you're going to film if they did a false hit or not on your vehicle, on your automobile. They'll try to tell you, oh no. Now the next thing that they do is to get you from not filming is the first thing they do is put you in handcuffs and place you under arrest. Now, if you caught those moments before you had the handcuffs put on you, they never told you why they put you in cuffs. They only say, oh, because you have this camera, it could be used as a weapon. Here's a man with a gun, a nightstick, a taser, handcuffs, bear mace on their hip, telling you because they fear for their life because you're filming them to make sure that they did their job. So they take your camera out your hand, they position your camera to how they want to position it, and then they keep you in handcuffs so that you can't film them. Then when they done doing their shit, then they take the cuffs off of you and then give you a shitload of tickets. Or they do a false hit and claim that they found something that they planted and arrest your ass. Okay? This is why you got to put cameras. You got to put cameras not only on your dash that covers the whole back part of your car. Put cameras in both of your side mirrors and have a camera pointed down in your vehicle that can cover your seat. So if anyone is putting anything underneath in the seat, the camera will cover that shit. You're gonna have to start doing these things. It's sad, but these are what we have to go and start doing nowadays, right? Because as long as you're underneath their jurisdiction, they're going to figure out ways to consistently F you up. So they came out with the annoyance policy in Florida because folks started enforcing their constitutional rights on them. Not just their constitutional rights, their human rights on them. Their God-given creators' rights on them. So now they got to create a policy to try to counter that. But no policy counters law. Law is law. That's it. So even their annoyance policy don't trump the Constitution. It does not. It's a policy, it's not a law. And they're going to continue using words calling it a law, but it's not a law. It is a policy. Right? So, we these are things that we're have to start paying attention to and understand to what's happening. Like, there's 350 officers being sued. It's a bigger thing than that. Imagine that folks from there's no statute of limitations on fraud. And I guarantee you folks that was in protesters from even in the goddamn 70s, that if you were wrongfully arrested and they put certain things on that document to put a charge on you, that is fraud. No statute of limitation on fraud. None. You could go back after that precinct and that officer. Now, in my opinion, if it was me, I'm just saying now, if it was me, I would sue the officer in their personal capacity and then go after them, go after the precinct itself and hold the precinct accountable, such as also the mayor and the governor as well should be held accountable for this right here. Okay? But these officers are not going to learn. They're not going to respect you until, in my opinion, start hitting them themselves in their pockets, in their personal bank accounts. Otherwise, from that, the change that you're expecting to come is not going to come. Because they're always going to look at Big Brother, which is the system, to just bail them out by printing up some money and pay your ass off in a civil suit. Okay? You could go, in my opinion, I would put a lien on in their pension. Oh, you expecting to get this pension? You expecting to get this? Oh, nah. I got a lien on everything you think you're going to get. I got a lien on all that. Oh, you think you're going to sell that? You want to sell your house? Oh, you can't. You got a lien on your house? All that. In my opinion. That's what I'll do. Have to start. This is how you're going to have to me, start countering what's going on. Okay. This is just crazy, man. 350 officers, and they're trying to toy around this lawsuit, trying to toy around it, not even focusing on the main subject. Then also pay attention. You're not supposed to, you are not supposed to go down to City Hall to pay for a permit for you to exercise your creator given rights to protest, to civil disobedience, to express, to voice yourself in a peaceful manner. You're not even supposed to give a date on time of when you're going to go do it. You just do it because automatically once you're doing it, they already see what it is. Not supposed to fill out no permit to go on protest. Why are you doing that? That is a slave mentality to show that you're still being controlled. What's the use of civil disobedience if it's controlled civil disobedience? What's the use of protesting if it's a controlled protest? What's the use of fighting for certain things if you are being told what to fight for, when to fight for it, how to fight for it? You're still being controlled. The whole thing is to break away from the control, the mental control that is holding you down. Period. But if there's a force out there telling you, well, you want to go protest on what, Wednesday the 14th? Oh no, we can't do that. Wednesday the 14th. Oh, that's a big holiday. That's a big holiday. That's a lot of sales for the stores. And Wall Street, that's going to be a great day for Wall Street, for the stock market. No, we can't do that. No. How about the 27th? We can let you do it on the 27th. Oh, okay. It's going to cost you $10 for the permit to be able to go do that. How stupid does that sound? You're paying to go fight for your rights. Who does that? What these officers were doing is not called kettling. It's called corral. That's what it's called. Corralling. It's not kettling. The definition of kettling doesn't even they don't even have kettling in these dictionaries. Now let's go back a little here. So this is corral. To drive into a corral. From 1848 as to form a circle with wagons, meaning to lay hold of, collar, capture, make a prisoner. Okay? You type in kettle. Kettle's not going to come up in this. Might not. Let's see what comes up. Probably something new. Some new definition. Kettle. A metal vessel used for boiling or heating liquid over a flame. So where the hell did they get the term kettle from, or kettle in, when these officers are blocking your path, pushing you into a circular format so that they can circle you? When they remember in St. Louis when they was picking up their bicycles, they're using their bicycles to push people back, and then to push people down another street that they wanted them to go down to because they was already down there waiting for them to come, and then swooped in and did some mass arrests when they was doing that with a bicycle. Or in New York when they had the barricades, the dividers, using the dividers to do that in New York, right? It's called corral. It's not called no kettle or kettle in. When they give you when they make up a name and give you, it takes away from the true agenda or the true thing that the corrupt ones are doing. So there's no such thing as kettle or kettle in. When it comes to this, it's called corralling. That's what you do. That's what cowboys used to do with the livestock. The cowboys used to do with the sheeps, the cows, or the buffaloes. So they used to corral them, trap them in a corner, or move them from one location to the next. Okay, that's what it's called. All right. But y'all. I gotta watch my time because let me see, how much time did I do here? Because only have 20 hours to do for the month, right? With the StreamYard. So I think I did probably 13 hours already, plus this right here. But God, we have to properly educate ourselves, and we have to be very, very careful to what's going on now. Okay, very careful. Give me 1 second, y'all. Let me make sure everything is great. Okay, but yeah, like it's very disgusting to see these things and to see how little people actually understand to what's happening to them. It's very disgusting to see that. Like I don't know. Like it's like wow. That's all I can say. Wow. For them, I mean, but it's what it is. I'm about to get up out of here in a few, y'all. I'm gonna post the the links